The master watches the student fail for the 47th time. Same mistake, same angle, same collapse in form. The student is frustrated, sweating, gripping the brush so hard his knuckles are white. I've practiced this stroke for 3 weeks. Why can't I get it right? The master sets down his tea. Because you're trying to learn. The student stares at him, confused. Isn't that the point? No. Learning is what your mind does when it's afraid of forgetting. Mastery is what your body does when your mind finally shuts up. The student doesn't understand, but he will. Because what he's about to discover is the reason most people spend years trying to learn something that could take months, if they would just stop thinking they're learning. Here's the truth about learning anything. You don't get faster by trying harder. You get faster by removing the interference between intention and execution. The Japanese discovered this centuries ago and built an entire system around it. They called it Shuhari, Shopo-Li, the 3 stages of mastery. But here's what no one tells you. Most people never leave the first stage. Not because they're not talented, not because they're not disciplined, but because they're addicted to the feeling of learning without ever crossing into the territory of doing. They collect techniques, watch tutorials, take notes, feel productive, and stay exactly where they are. The Student Who Knew Too Much, 1843. A young calligrapher named Daiichi arrives at the studio of Master Kon. Daiichi is 22, educated, well-read. He's studied under 3 teachers already, read every text on brush technique, practiced daily for 5 years. And he's mediocre. Not terrible, just stuck. His strokes are technically correct but lifeless, predictable, safe. Master Kon is 78, nearly blind, hands gnarled with age. But when he paints, the brush moves like water finding its path. Daiichi watches him complete a single character, mu, wu, emptiness, in 4 strokes. It takes 11 seconds, and it's the most beautiful thing Daiichi has ever seen. Please, teach me. Kon sets down his brush. Show me what you can do. Daiichi prepares carefully, grinds the ink, tests the consistency, positions the paper at the exact angle his second teacher recommended. He takes a breath, centers himself, recalls the form, and paints. It's fine, technically accurate, proportionally correct, perfectly forgettable. Kon studies it for a long moment. How many teachers have you had? 3. How many books have you read? Maybe 40. Stop. Kon's voice is quiet but final. That's your problem. Daiichi is confused, defensive. I thought learning from multiple masters was... You haven't learned anything. You've collected things. You've filled your head with so much information that there's no room left for intuition. Kon stands, walks to the window. Right now, before you make a stroke, how many things are you thinking about? Daiichi considers this. The angle of the brush, the pressure, the flow of the ink, the balance. What my teachers said about 14 things. You're thinking about 14 things before the brush touches paper. Isn't that good? Being mindful? No, it's paralysis. You're trying to remember your way to mastery. But mastery only happens when you forget everything you've learned. This is the trap most people fall into. They think learning is accumulation, more knowledge, more techniques, more perspectives. But the Japanese discovered something radical. True learning is subtraction. You become a master by needing less. Kon gives Daiichi a simple instruction. For the next 7 days, you will paint only one character, the same character, over and over. Which one? Ichi, Yi. 1. A single horizontal line. Daiichi is insulted. I've been training for 5 years. I can do much more complex. I know, that's the problem. You've learned to do complicated things badly. Now you're going to learn to do a simple thing perfectly. 1 line, 1,000 times a day. No variation, no creativity. Kon doesn't smile. You're going to stop learning and start doing. Day 1 is torture. By line 50, Daiichi's mind is screaming. This is pointless. I already know how to draw a line. By line 200, he's negotiating. Maybe I should try different pressures. Make this more interesting. By line 500, something strange happens. His mind gives up. It stops commenting, stops judging, stops trying, and the lines start to flow. Day 3. The lines are becoming automatic. His hand knows where to start, how much pressure to apply, without him deciding any of it. Day 7. 1,000 lines completed. Cone enters the studio, studies the papers in silence, finally speaks. Now you're ready to start learning. He picks up an early paper. The lines are tense, controlled, effortful. Then one from today. Loose, natural, effortless. The first lines were made by your mind, all that technique, all that trying. The last lines were made by your body, which already knew what to do once your mind stopped interfering. This is show, the first gate. You don't learn the technique. You submit to it until it becomes invisible. But here's what Daichi doesn't know yet. Most people who reach this stage make one fatal mistake: the comfort trap. Daichi spends the next 2 months in Kuhn's studio. Every day, the same routine. Wake before dawn, grind ink, paint. But now, instead of one line, Kuhn gives him simple characters. Tree, water, mountain, sky, basic forms, nothing complex. And Daichi is good at them. Really good. After weeks of the single line, these characters feel easy, natural. His brush moves with confidence. The strokes flow. People who visit the studio compliment his work. And slowly, without noticing, Daichi stops progressing. Week 8. Kuhn watches Daichi paint the character for water, Shui. It's beautiful, balanced, technically flawless. Exactly the same as yesterday's, and the day before that, and the day before that. Kuhn sets down his tea. You're stuck. Daichi looks up, surprised. But I thought I was doing well. You are. That's the problem. Here's what happened. Daichi mastered the basic forms so completely that they became comfortable. His body knows exactly what to do. No struggle, no uncertainty. And his mind interpreted this as mission accomplished. So he stopped pushing, stopped exploring, stopped risking failure. He found a level of competence that feels good and decided to live there forever. The Japanese have a term for this: anshin no wana, anshin no min, the trap of comfort. It's the place where most people spend their entire lives, not failing, not excelling, just repeating what they already know, calling it practice, wondering why they never improve. Cone walks to the window. Do you know why most students never reach mastery? Because they quit. No, because they succeed too early. They get good enough that it stops hurting. And once it stops hurting, they stop growing. He turns back to Daichi. You've mastered Shu, the form. Your body knows the movements, but now you're hiding inside that mastery, using it as a shield against the next stage, which is Happo, breaking. Daichi doesn't like the sound of that. Breaking what? Everything you just learned. Cone hands Daichi a new brush, heavier, stiffer, unfamiliar. Paint water again with this. Daichi grips the brush. It feels wrong, unbalanced. He tries the first stroke, and it fails. The ink bleeds. The angle is off. The character looks clumsy, childish. He tries again. Worse, and again, even worse. His face flushes. The brush is fine. You're the problem. Kuhn sits down. You learned to paint water with your comfortable brush, in your comfortable position, with your comfortable technique. Your body memorized one path to success. But mastery isn't one path. It's the ability to find any path under any conditions. This is Ha, the second gate. You take the foundation you built in Shu and you stress test it. Change the conditions, remove the supports, break the pattern. Because if your skill only works in perfect circumstances, you don't have mastery. You have a performance. And the moment conditions change, you collapse. For the next month, Kuhn makes everything harder. Different brushes, different paper, different ink consistency, paint standing, paint sitting on the floor, paint with your non-dominant hand, paint in the dark, paint in the rain, paint while someone talks to you. Every session, Daiichi fails. And every session, something inside him resists. This isn't fair. I already proved I can do this. Why do I have to start over? But Kun is relentless. You're not starting over, you're expanding. Week 3 of Ha. Daiichi is painting in the garden. It's cold, the ink is too thin. The paper keeps moving in the wind. He's about to give up when something shifts. He stops trying to control the conditions, stops waiting for everything to be perfect, and just responds. The wind moves the paper. He adjusts. The ink bleeds. He uses it. The brush feels heavy. He lets it fall naturally. And the character that emerges is alive. Not technically perfect. Not what he planned. But real, present, responsive. Kun watches from the doorway. Says nothing. Doesn't need to. This is what most people never understand about learning. Comfort is the enemy of growth. The moment something feels easy, that's your signal to increase the difficulty. Not because you're a masochist, but because mastery is adaptation, not memorization. If you can only perform when conditions are perfect, you're one disruption away from losing everything you think you've learned. But there's a third stage most people never reach, and it requires something even harder than breaking the form. The final gate, month 6. Daiichi can now paint in almost any condition. Different brushes, different surfaces, distractions, discomfort. His technique has become flexible. He's no longer dependent on perfect circumstances. Kun watches him complete a complex character while sitting in an awkward position, using a brush he's never touched before. It's good, really good. But Kun sees something missing. You've mastered Ha. You can adapt, you can respond, you can execute under pressure. Daiichi waits. But you're still following something. Following what? The form. Even when you break it, even when you adapt, you're still referring back to what you learned in Shu. Kun sets down his brush. You paint like someone who remembers the rules well enough to break them cleverly, but you don't paint like someone who's forgotten the rules entirely. This is Li, the third gate, transcendence. It's not about mastering the form. It's not about breaking the form. It's about moving beyond the need for form entirely. You're no longer thinking, what's the right way to do this? You're no longer thinking, how do I adapt this technique to these conditions? You're not thinking at all. You just do. And what emerges is something that couldn't exist through technique alone. Kun gives Daiichi a new instruction. For the next 30 days, you will paint whatever you want, however you want. No restrictions, no assignments. Daiichi is relieved. Finally, creative freedom. But, Kun continues, before you begin each session, you will sit in silence for 10 minutes. No preparation, no planning, no visualizing what you'll create. Then what do I do? Nothing. You sit until the intention to paint arises on its own, and when it does, you move immediately. No thought between the impulse and the action. Daiichi nods, thinking this sounds easy. It's not. Day 1. Daiichi sits in silence. His mind floods with ideas. I should paint a landscape. No, a portrait. Maybe something abstract. What would impress Kun? What would challenge me? 10 minutes pass. He's planned 17 different paintings in his head. He picks up the brush, excited, and freezes. Because now that he's decided what to paint, the spontaneity is gone. He's back in his head, performing the idea instead of discovering it. The painting is fine, competent, dead. Day 4. Daiichi is frustrated. I don't understand. You told me I could paint whatever I want, but everything I make feels forced. Kun nods. Because you're still choosing, and choice requires thought. And thought creates distance between you and the work. So what am I supposed to do? Stop choosing, let the brush choose. Daiichi stares at him. That doesn't make sense. I know, that's why most people never reach Rai. Here's what Kun means. In Shu, you learn the technique consciously. Your mind is in control. In Ha, you adapt the technique consciously. Your mind is still in control, just more flexible. But in Ri, the mind steps aside entirely. There's no you painting. There's just painting happening. The intention arises, the hand moves, the image appears, and you're as surprised by it as anyone else. Because you weren't making it, you were allowing it. Day 12. Daiichi sits in silence. For the first time, he's not planning, not hoping, not trying to figure it out. He's just sitting. And after 8 minutes, something strange happens. His hand twitches. Not a decision, not a thought, just impulse. He picks up the brush, doesn't choose a character, doesn't aim for anything, just lets the brush touch the paper, and a stroke appears. Then another, then another. He's not making them. They're just happening. His conscious mind is watching, confused, trying to catch up to what his hand is doing. But his hand doesn't need permission. It already knows. The painting that emerges is unlike anything Daiichi has created before. It's not technically perfect. Some strokes are rough, others bleed. But it's alive in a way his other work never was. It has presence. Not because he put it there, but because he got out of the way. Kun sees it and says nothing for a long time. Finally, now you understand. Daiichi looks at the painting, then at his hands. I don't know how I did that. Exactly, that's Rai. When the how disappears and only the doing remains. Here's the brutal truth about mastery. You can't think your way there. You can't plan your way there. You can only remove yourself so completely that the thing you're trying to master can move through you without interference. This is why most people never reach this level. Not because they lack talent, but because they can't let go of control. They want to be the author of their success. But mastery requires you to become the instrument, and most people's egos can't survive that. Daiichi spends his last month with Kun painting from this place. Some days it happens. Other days it doesn't, but when it does, he's not painting. Painting is happening, and the difference is everything. On his final day, Kun gives him one last teaching. You came here wanting to learn faster, but speed was never the goal. Then what was? Disappearance. The faster you learn, the faster you can get out of your own way. And once you're out of the way, there's no limit to what can move through you. He hands Daiichi a sealed scroll. Don't open this until you're home. 3 days later, Daiichi opens the scroll. It's blank except for 4 characters. Wang Wo Cheng Dao, forget self. Become the path. But here's what Daiichi and you need to understand about applying this in the modern world. The path forward. 10 years later, Daiichi has become a respected calligrapher. Not famous, not wealthy, but his work has presence. The thing you can't teach, can't fake, can't manufacture through technique alone. One day, a young man arrives at his studio. 20 years old, eager, impatient. I want to learn calligraphy, but I don't have years to spend on basics. Can you teach me the fast way? Daiichi recognizes himself in this question. He sets down his brush. There is no fast way, but there is a direct way. The young man leans forward. What's the difference? The fast way is what you're already doing. Watching tutorials, reading books, collecting techniques, thinking you're learning. The direct way is removing everything between you and the practice until nothing remains but repetition and response. The young man doesn't understand. So Daiichi shows him. Take out your phone. The young man does. How many apps do you have for learning? I don't know, maybe 7. Language apps, tutorial subscriptions, note-taking. Delete them. What? Not forever, just for 30 days. Every one of them. The young man hesitates. But how will I learn without? That's the point. You're not learning. You're consuming the feeling of learning, and your brain can't tell the difference. Here's what Daiichi discovered in the 10 years since leaving Kaun. The modern world has weaponized the feeling of progress. Every app is designed to make you feel like you're learning. Progress bars, streaks, badges, notifications that say you're doing great. But none of it translates to embodied skill, because real learning doesn't feel like progress. It feels like boredom, repetition, and microscopic improvement that's invisible until you look back months later. And your brain hates that. So it reaches for the dopamine hit of watching another tutorial, saving another post, starting another course. Motion without movement. Daichi hands the young man a brush and a single sheet of paper. Draw a circle, just one, as perfect as you can make it. The young man does. It's wobbly, uneven. Now do it again, same circle, 100 times, today. That's it? Just circles. Just circles. But I already know how to... No, you know about circles. Your hand doesn't know circles yet, and it won't until you've done it so many times that your mind gives up and your body takes over. The young man looks skeptical, but something in Daichi's tone makes him try. This is the Shu-Ha-Ri framework translated into the modern world. Shu, pick one thing, not three things, not a little bit of everything. One language, one instrument, one skill. And eliminate everything else for 30 days. No tutorials about it, no books about it. No optimizing your learning system, just doing it badly, repeatedly, boringly, until your body memorizes it and your mind shuts up. Once it becomes automatic, once you can do it without thinking, break your comfort. Change the conditions, remove the supports. Learning piano, play in a different room, on a different keyboard, standing up. Learning a language, stop using apps. Force yourself to speak with native speakers where you will fail and look stupid. Learning to code, stop following tutorials. Build something real where you don't know the solution in advance. Rai, this is the stage you can't force. It happens when you've spent so much time in Shu and Ha that the technique becomes invisible. You're no longer following the form. You're no longer adapting the form. The form has dissolved, and all that remains is response. You don't think about the language. You just speak. You don't think about the code. You just build. You don't think about the music. You just play. The young man returns the next day. I did the circles, all 100. And the first 50 felt pointless. But around 70, something changed. My hand just knew where to go. Daichi nods. That's the door. Most people quit at 49 because they can't tolerate the boredom, but the shift happens right on the other side of the resistance. Here's the part most people don't want to hear. You already know what you need to do. You don't need another framework, another system, another course. You need to pick one thing and do it every day for 30 days with zero variation and zero escape. Not when you feel motivated. Not when you have time. Every day. Same time, same practice, no exceptions. And here's what will happen. Week 1, your mind will scream that this is boring, pointless, beneath you. Week 2, you'll want to quit. You'll invent reasons why this approach is wrong, why you need more variety, why you should be learning differently. Week 3, your mind will go quiet. The practice will become automatic. You'll stop judging each repetition. Week 4, you'll look back and realize you've learned more in 30 days than in the previous 6 months of studying. Not because you worked harder, but because you removed the interference. The young man practices with Daichi for 3 months. Circles, lines, basic strokes. Nothing advanced, nothing impressive. And by month 3, his work has something Daichi's other students, the ones who wanted to skip ahead, who collected techniques, who chased complexity, will never have. Foundation, not flashy, not innovative, but unshakable. On his last day, the young man asks, "When will I know I've mastered this?" Daichi doesn't look up from his painting. You won't. Mastery isn't a destination, it's the absence of the question. You'll just wake up one day and realize you're no longer trying to be good. You're no longer thinking about technique. You're just doing, and the doing is enough. The young man is quiet for a moment. That sounds empty. It is, and it's the only thing worth pursuing. Here's the practice distilled into one action you can start today. Pick one skill you've been learning for months or years without real progress. Not the skill you're most passionate about, not the one that would be most impressive. The one you've been avoiding through consumption. Tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you do anything else, practice the most basic element of that skill for 20 minutes. Not the advanced stuff, not the interesting parts. The foundation you've been skipping because it's boring. If it's language, just verb conjugations. Out loud, no app. If it's an instrument, just scales, no songs. If it's art, just basic shapes, no full pieces. If it's code, just syntax, no projects, 20 minutes, zero distractions, zero variety, and do it again the next day and the next for 30 days. You won't feel like you're learning. That's the entire point. Because the feeling of learning is what's been stopping you from actually learning. And once you remove that addiction to progress feeling, once you can sit with the boredom, the repetition, the microscopic invisible improvement, you'll discover what the samurai, the calligraphers, the masters of every discipline already knew. The path is walked in silence. No fanfare, no validation, no proof that it's working. Just one step, then another, until the day you look back and realize you're not trying to do the thing anymore. You're just doing it. Daiichi is 70 now. His hands shake slightly when he paints, but the work is still alive. A student asks him, "After all these years, do you ever get tired of the practice?" Daiichi smiles. "I don't practice anymore." "Then what do you do?" "I just paint, and the painting knows what it wants to become." He sets down his brush. "That's what I spent 40 years learning, how to get out of the way." You don't learn faster by adding more. You learn faster by subtracting everything between you and the work. The tutorials, the optimization, the comparison, the dopamine, until all that remains is you, the practice. Silence. If you understood this, write one word below. The skill you're going to stop studying and start doing.